Well, hello, writers. Welcome to episode number 399 of How Do You Write? I'm Rachael Herron, and I am so thrilled today that you are with me as we talk to Sarah Hawley. We talk about letting go of perfection and taking a bath instead, always a good idea, and on stalking the word graveyard. You are really going to enjoy this episode, so please stick around for that. What has been going on around here? Well, we finished Nano. A lot of us over in the Onward Write Slack group, which you can always join by going to any of the show notes and clicking the link. We finished Nano. We set our own goals. Some people were 50,000, some people were 20,000, some people were higher, some people were lower. And a lot of us hit the goal that we set. And others of us remembered that it doesn't really matter if you hit the goal. What matters is that you're moving toward a goal. And then when, not if, but when you miss it, you adjust it. I mentioned last week that I really wanted to hit the 50,000 word mark, and I did on the 30th. It honestly felt a little anticlimactic because in that moment, there are many moments in NaNoWriMo where you are just writing to write. You're just writing to get your words done. That's all you're doing. Later on, what happens, and it's kind of magical, is that those words are a lot of times usable, or they give you ideas for what you actually need to do. But in that moment, I was really just waffling. I was just getting words done to get the words done. And it was fine. Actually, I think I can use them. I figured out where in the book they will go, but later in revision. But it felt a little anticlimactic. Did, however, feel incredibly celebratory to be with that group over in Slack. I am so eternally grateful that I decided to do that I decided to write with company all of November, and it was awesome. And as usual with Nano, a lot more people started than finished, but they started and they can reset the goal and do it again. And in fact, we're doing something over in that Slack channel called scaffolding, which is we're kind of just holding each other up in December. So if you would like to join that, please come over to the Slack group, join scaffolding. It's pretty awesome so far. And that's just you telling us your goal and what you want to do with it. It is not like Rachael Says Plan. Rachael Says Plan is that Patreon level where we really talk about planning, and we have the Q&A live call in the month. Scaffolding is kind of like a mini bit of that. And you are welcome in either of those two things. So that has been going on. Also, my sister arrived and now lives with us, and it is the best. She is staying in the little antechamber office right behind this office. And I was thinking the other day that is pretty cool because now I don't go through that office, the spare. I would always walk through the house through the spare room to get to this little office. It has two doors. It has an interior door and an exterior door. External door? Which one is right? It doesn't matter. And now I go in and out through that external door that goes out to the back porch and then in through the kitchen. And I actually have to leave the house and be outside just for a second. It's covered, so it's fine when it's raining, but I have to leave the house to come into the office. And then when I leave the office, I go back into the house, and it has been feeling incredible. I did not know that I needed or wanted that separation. And honestly, I'm lazy. And if that separation is not there, then I will not, I would just immediately go back to going through that room. But it has felt really nice and good. Also, it has felt really lovely to have her here. It has just been amazing. It's been a week and so good. So my heart is happy, and that's awesome. What else is going on? In big news, 90 days to done and 90-day revision master classes that I open and teach 2 or 3 times a year, sometimes once a year, open right now. We start in January. There are still a few slots over in revision, and there are some slots over in 90 days to done, but those slots normally go quickly. So if you are interested, please run over to rachaelherron.com/90-day revision, or just rachaelherron.com/90. And the other one is rachaelherron.com/revision. If you're interested in the revision, that's the one that goes really fast. rachaelherron.com/revision. If it is closed, it will tell you on that page. And then when they close, I always have a sign up list for you to sign up and hear first next time. So if it is closed, go ahead and put your name on that notification list. And if it is closed, I apologize for that. But some of my students have been nice enough to give me some testimony. So I will be playing those on the show right now. And in other news, I am taking most of December off of teaching and Rachel Says Right, which is still being run by the marvelous May and Ed, but I'm also taking it off of doing podcasts. So what I'm doing right now is I am going to prep 4 or 5 episodes I've got to look at the calendar, for the month of December. So because I will not be doing a little catch up like I am doing right now, I think I'm going to look at the top 4 feelings that keep writers from the page. A while back, I asked in my email newsletter, I asked for writers to tell me a bunch of things. Tell me what the biggest fear is that you have. Tell me the biggest emotions that keep you from the page. Tell me the biggest happinesses you get from writing. And I have been sorting through those and using them to help me write this book that I've been writing during NaNoWriMo. And I really like thinking about these feelings that are keeping writers from the page. So in place of the normal update for the next few episodes, I will be talking about those. So that should be fun. I hope you enjoy those. And then I'll be back as normal in January when I am teaching both of the 90 Days to Done courses. They are phenomenal. They are where I love to be. They're where I put a great majority of my time and effort to lead people by the hand through writing a book, either the first draft or a subsequent revision. Revision is open to anyone whose book is about 85% done or more. If it is less than that, then perhaps 90 days to done is your best bet, where you finish that first draft. But some people can't finish a first draft, and it's still okay to do revision on that if you are approximately 85% done or more, if you think that way. And I've just got to tell you really quickly here, in these classes, people finish books. I routinely have students who have been working on their books for a year or 2 years or 10 years or more who finally finish the book in these classes, or they revise them, or they start a new one and then they finish that and then they revise it. It is the great honor of my life that I get to do this with people. And I do not take it lightly. I take it as seriously as I do my writing. Those are the 2 things that I love best and take most seriously. And then everything else business-wise kind of falls where it does around me, and I get to it or I don't get to it. But writing and helping other writers write is my passion. And you know that. You've heard me talk about that on here. So run over there, grab it if you want to. I'd love to have you. What else? I think that's it. Let us jump into the interview with Sarah. Here is her bio. Sarah Hawley is an author of romance and fantasy novels. She was a winner of Rev Pit 2018, and her short stories and articles have been published by Hooked, Slackjaw, the Belladonna Comedy, and Points and Case. She co-hosts the Wicked Wallflowers Club podcast about romance fiction, which was featured, that's hard to say, on Entertainment Weekly. Sarah has both a BA and an MA in archaeology. A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon is her most recent novel. Please enjoy this fabulous interview with Sarah. And here we go. Happy writing to all of you. Well, I could not be more pleased to welcome you to the show. Hello. Will you please share your name and your pronouns with us?
Hi, my name is Sarah Hawley. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am absolutely delighted to be here today.
I'm absolutely delighted to have you. I can't wait to talk about this. My next book, it won't come out till 2025, but it is also paranormal, witchy goodness. So I just devoured your book, and I can't wait to talk about all of your writing stuff. How do you do it? How do you get it done? Where do you do it? Can you walk us through the process? What your process
how
looks
do
like?
I get it done? I'm coming to you while when this comes out, I will have hit my deadline. fingers crossed. But I'm coming to you from a person who is on deadline right now, trying to finish a draft of a book, very much wondering, how do I write a book?
What kind of deadline is it? Are we like 12 hours out or 2 weeks out?
We are weeks out. We are about 3 weeks out. Good. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. But it's definitely, the first draft is always an exciting time. So my writing process is, I kind of squeeze it in where I can. I do have a full-time day job, so I write a lot on the weekends, I would say, is the bulk of my writing. Sometimes if I'm up early, like this morning, I went to Starbucks before work and did about an hour of work there. And I'm not like a great plotter. I'm not entirely a pantser. I tend to have like a loose 3-act structure, and sometimes like a pretty detailed synopsis, not on this one, which is whoops. But normally I'll have maybe like a 10-page synopsis just telling the story of the story. That I do deviate from. I very much kind of write where the characters take me, but hopefully within that a loose idea of where I'm going, and just kind of getting the words down as quickly and chaotically as I can.
So you are a messy first drafter.
Well, yes and no. I do write pretty clean in general, but I would say the second draft is really where I think it comes together. The first draft, there will be tangents. There will be things where I just make a note, like go back to do this later. The first draft is all about sort of that propulsive forward energy. And because otherwise, like, I will just get bogged down forever trying to workshop the prose. And I think that's part of what's happened a little bit with this draft is I spent so long in about the first 4 chapters really getting a sense of the world and the voice and all of that now I'm like, oh no, like I need to race towards the end because I can workshop all that in future drafts, and I need to just do that.
And that is why a deadline is so good to have.
Yes.
Would you say that I have absolutely lost all track of what I was going to say. It's one of those days. I apologize for that. When you are drafting, are you aiming, this is what I was going to say, are you aiming for time in the chair? Are you kind of a word count person? How do you quantify where you're going?
Probably. Yeah. I don't necessarily set goals because I'm also very much a binge writer and a mood writer. And so there will be days where I get 10 words down, and there will be days where I get, 10,000. The most I ever did in one day was a little over 20,000 words.
Oh my God. Was that all typed, or was there some dictation?
It was all typed. No, it was all typed. And it started about 6 a.m. and went through until about midnight with basically no breaks. That is not
on deadline, or were you just inspired?
No, I was just inspired. This was before kind of the publication or anything. It's actually a project that didn't really go anywhere. And I do think that the third act was a little messy, understandably, because of that. But no, I just got so much in the zone and the focus, and it was just flowing. And sometimes when words start coming out of me, I get into hyper focus, and it's very hard for me to stop, which can be a superpower, but also a bit difficult sometimes. If you're like, I need to eat, I feel a little sick, I physically can't stop. I was diagnosed with ADHD incidentally about a year ago, so this might be sounding familiar to some people.
It is. I am ADHD from jump. And the other day I had this really unpleasant thing happen where I showed up to my writers group, and I was like, I don't know why I feel so wild. I cannot control myself. And I realized I hadn't eaten in like 7 hours, and I never do that. Like, I am an eater, but I had just gotten into hyperfocus, and it made me feel so strange. So it is nice to know that other people do that too. But I also really like how you said that you're a binge writer and a mood writer, and there will be people listening who really identify with that, because there's always, this background chatter of, you must be disciplined. You must sit down and write the same place at the same time, same number of words. No. So how do you know when to chase that mood?
I think it's just, because at some point there does have to be the discipline element of writing when you really don't want to be writing. And sometimes and so that's where you're like, it's okay to have a day where you did nothing but like cut 10 words. Like, that is okay. It's still a habit you're doing. I would say if I'm feeling inspiration in a certain place, I will stay there. I'll do things to sort of try and ride that wave of inspiration. Yeah, it's kind of hard to explain, because it's like explaining what your brain feels like to other people. I do tend to move around a lot on my weekends. Like, if I'm going to get 6 or 8 hours of writing in a day, I struggle to sit still for that long in one place. So I will have my routine. I have my coffee shop that I go to, and I'll write there for maybe 2 hours, and then I'll get restless, and then I'll go to my lunch place and I'll write a couple hours there. And then I'll like, wander around and like try and find a weekend estate sale or something to like feel like to walk, to look at something that isn't my computer screen. And then maybe I'll settle somewhere else and do another hour, another 2 hours. So it's really about where it fits in. Obviously this doesn't work every weekend. It doesn't work all the time. Life gets busy, but if I do have those days where I can sort of ride that wave, it's about, okay, have I reached the limit of my productivity at this coffee shop? In which case, like, okay, I'm gonna switch venue, and oh look, it's a shiny new world, and I can now chase the inspiration in that new shiny place. So
I do exactly the same thing. And it feels like I've never written before. I haven't written at all today when you sit down at the new shiny place. It's going to bother me when I figure out who said this, but I recently heard of somebody who takes like their computer or their free write or whatever they have and takes a long walk through a park. And then every bench they come down to, they write for a while. I know,
that's
right?
Such a good idea.
I had forgotten it until this moment. And now I want to try it because you could walk for hours and stuff, and like bring yourself a whole picnic, right? A lot of sunscreen. A lot of sunscreen.
That'd be so good. Sometimes I dress up to go. Sometimes I'll do my makeup to go out to write in the world. Which is not, it's not normally a thing I do, but there's something about making an event. I'm going to be skipping ahead. I know one of the questions is going to be nice things I did for myself. One of them was buy myself a fancy pair of writing pants. So I can feel like it's an occasion. So actually I have them here.
What are your writing pants? I want to know.
They're like these enormous, incredibly swooshy, like 4-foot wide legs, pink silk something or other. And so
they're wide and shiny and gorgeous, and they're textured. They've got like some kind of pattern on them.
And they're soft, they feel nice. And then I can just kind of swan around I don't necessarily wear them outside of the house because they're really ridiculous, but I can kind of
you would get a lot of
around
attention
my house
for wearing them. But I mean, it's not a bad thing. So
so it's like mood writing can be as simple as like, I did my makeup and I feel like a human today. Or sometimes if I bike to my coffee shop, I've got the little energy going. Or if I'm like, you know what, I'm going to wear something ridiculous today because like I need to amp myself up for this moment to make this task, this daily Sisyphean task somehow different.
It is so Sisyphean, which I don't think I've ever said out loud.
Before. I have not either. So I don't actually know if I said that right.
I think we both did. What is your biggest challenge when it comes to writing?
I would say probably the sticky middle into act 3 of the first draft is always a bad place for me. Because which is incidentally kind of where I am right now. It'll all be okay. I think I got into it. I'm finally getting into the set piece of like the last big event. And at this point, this is when I start writing way too much in one day. Yeah. But that feeling where you're like, this isn't perfect yet. I know I need to go back and fix things. How do you write again? Like, what if I'm a fraud? Like, what if the book deal was a terrible mistake and I can't reproduce, the first time that it was great? So that's a big challenge for me. And then, which I guess the only way out is through on that one. And then another challenge I would say is not writing related, but being a relatively new author, this sudden sense of visibility, being perceived, having your work out there, having people say things about it. I try not to look at reviews. Most people will tag you in reviews and you have no choice. You will look at that review. But just the kind of terror of being out there. And because so many authors, like, we're expected to be on social media and being visible in a way that doesn't always feel natural. Or emotionally safe. So I would say still navigating that and trying to, I'm still navigating the boundaries of social media and review sites and how to protect that part of myself so that it doesn't feel quite so terrifying to be out there.
How do you do that? I have
I don't know.
new writers asking me that all the time. And I can't really, I mean, I remember what my reaction was back in the day when I first came out. Like, I just cried a lot. And then my sister took over my Google alerts for a while. And, my partner helped me not ever look at reviews. But do you remember, because you're closer to that since your second book is just coming out. So
I need someone to look at reviews and stop me. One thing is just because at first, when the first the first book and then this next one coming out, when it first goes up and you see your first reviews, I'm looking at all of them because I'm like, what if everyone says, wow, like did Berkeley make a horrible mistake? But at some point, usually once my feelings get hurt enough, because I don't belong in those spaces. Those are reader spaces, and I never engage with the reviews unless it's something really nice. Someone tagged me, and like that's not my job to do that. They're allowed to hate my book, like that's fine. It comes down to willpower of I now only let myself look at 5-star reviews for which is good because I can't stop myself entirely, but at least I can do that.
I do something very similar. I really forget to, I honestly just like, I forget to look for like a year at a time. But if I do look, I only look at 5 stars and 1 stars. Cause after all, 1 stars are so great. Oh my gosh. They're so delicious after a while because they just get more and more ludicrous. Like this was, I can't believe this was even said in England. And you're like, it wasn't said in England. It doesn't even mention England. Like those kind of reviews just tickle me. So
I think I'm still too new and fragile to appreciate that. Yeah. I have appreciated a few 1-star reviews that were like, there is too much sex in this, or like, there is a lot of swearing, because those 1-star reviews are gold because someone says,
they're selling books.
My God, the smut was never ending. And she said the F-bomb like 60 times. I don't say it 60 times, but I do say it. And then another reader is like, yes, I would like that. So
exactly. Those are the best.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think navigating social media is going to be the next big thing, maybe taking hiatuses. So yeah, it's still very much like, how do you protect your brain? I don't totally know, but like I'm working on it.
Thank you for discussing it, because it is one of those things that we always need to think about. Yeah. And it gets more and more creative as more and more social media things happen. Yeah, I know. So what is your biggest joy when it comes to writing?
Ooh, what is my biggest joy? I think, honestly, I love editing. It's my favorite part of the process because the words are already there and you get to make them better. And especially if you've kind of been away from your book for a while and you remember it being this horrible dumpster fire, and then you come back and you're like, these little golden moments, or this dialogue I really like. I like world building. I think that's really fun. And something that's great to do with all these fantasy rom-coms is to think about your world. And one thing that gives me great joy in the Glimmer Falls series is just coming out with like ludicrous magical world parallels to modern things. So it's like, okay, well, what would the furniture store be? I think it would be IKEA, and it would be run by werewolves, or like what's the equivalent of DocuSign in this magical world? Like maybe it's WarlockUsign, like things like that, where I'm just like, like that's fun. And then just meeting readers at events and like signing books and realizing that the writing matters to people who aren't just you. That's also a lot of joy. So
that's wonderful. And I love like seeing your face kind of glow when you talk about that. That's gorgeous. Can you share a craft tip of any sort with us?
Yes. So one thing that I find super helpful in both first drafts and then editing, I have a really hard time letting go of words. I'm convinced like, well, no, like this is so well put, but it doesn't need to be there. Like I understand something doesn't need to be there, but I have a really hard time deleting things. So I have what I call a word graveyard. And it's a separate document where I just copy and I paste all of these things. Every time I cut like a whole paragraph or a chunk or even a line of dialogue, I just put it into the word graveyard, because then it's not gone. I could come back to it if I wanted to. And I never come back to it. Ever. But it's like this hack that I can do to get past that hurdle in my brain that doesn't want to delete anything. So that'd be my tip.
I call that my cuts file, but word graveyard is so much more evocative, because then you can tell yourself this whole story about like you could reanimate them. You could have word zombies.
You could have word ghosts, like they could come back.
Ghosts, they come haunt you. You can actually like send them out into the world as little pieces if you want. That is so cool and fun. And I love thinking about that. Thank you. That is awesome.
Oh, of course.
Okay. So you, let's go to, what is the kindest thing anyone's ever done for you in your writing career?
Okay. So, I was putting some thought into this because there's so many kind things people have done. That's one wonderful thing about this industry, is that there are so many writers who are just so generous and kind with their time, and their care and their advice. So a couple ones that really stand out. Vivian Jackson, who wrote Wanted and Wired. We were just Twitter mutuals. I think we met at RWA, and I had a kind of odd path to publication where I'd been trying to get traditionally published, but then and my editor slid into the DMs of like a to my private fan fiction account.
Wow.
And it was like, I really like your writing. Have you like, do you have a book? And it was like, yes, I have been trying to get published for like years now. I do. But I was so nervous that I think I just DM'd Vivian Jackson out of nowhere and was like, I'm really nervous because this editor wants my book. And like, what if it's no good? And she just offered to read it out of nowhere. Read it in like 2 days, gave me just a beautiful blurb, like my first blurb ever. And she just did that because she was kind. And she still cheers me. And I'm like, that was really nice.
And did you end up going with that editor? Is that the editor that you ended up going with?
Yes, that's the one I'm with. Yeah. And it was just so lovely.
That is not a story I have ever heard before. That is so cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. And then I come with other visual aids today because I know for the video thing. Excellent. So another thing is I'm part of a little support group of writers. It's called Words Are Hard. And it's other people who write fanfic, but also are pursuing this traditional publishing path. And so a lot of them are now have book deals. Some of them will have book deals. It's a ton of talented people, but just the constant cheering on. And one of them knitted me this shawl.
It's beautiful. So it's blue and pink and yellows. I can see in there. That's gorgeous.
Stripey. And it's just gorgeous. And she just like mailed that to me. And it was the week that the editor made the offer. And she was like, I just had a good feeling that something was going to happen. And I know you have some good news. And so I made this for you. And like, oh, I cried.
That feels super magical.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And so I just like, I keep that. And it's just this reminder of these people cheering you on all over. And that friend's name is Celia Winter. She's absolutely going to be huge in speculative fiction. I've read a couple of her things. They're amazing. So I can't wait. I can't knit, but I'm like, what can I do when she gets her good news, which like is absolutely going to come. So just these, little gestures of kindness.
Oh, that's beautiful. I've never had anybody share that kind of thing. And I am a big knitter. I'm always sitting. There's a sweater in progress right there. And I do think that kind of intentionality and she gave you such a big gift, and you will be able to think of something beautiful for her. And isn't it lovely to look forward and think about our friends when they are published, when their books are out there, and then we get to push them. That's one of my favorite things to do. Okay. So going back to the kindness question about yourself, you said you had one thing that was the pants. Love the pants. How else have you been kind to yourself as a writer?
I think the biggest moments of compassion are when I feel this urge to be performing perfectly and getting down thousands of words every day and, being good at everything, and you can't all the time, and your brain can't sustain that pace all the time. And so I think the kindest thing I've done has been days where I feel the urge to just push myself to the breaking point, and instead I like take a bath or have a day where you say it's okay. It's okay that you didn't get words down today. It's okay if you need like I asked for like a week-long extension on my second book. It was like, it's okay if you have to do that. Like you don't, it's very hard not to be the perpetual overachiever who like has to tick all the boxes. So yeah, it's always a work in progress, but I would say giving myself permission to not fail, but to take little breaks and to not be perfect all the time.
Isn't it interesting how many writers are perfectionists, and we don't expect anyone else to be perfect in the whole world, but except for us, like we're the exception. We should be. We've got this. So that's
we can do it. It's fine. It's totally fine.
Yeah, it's fine. I got it. That's gorgeous. How do you remember to give yourself that compassion?
I don't know. Honestly, other people often have to tell me.
Right.
So in these writers groups, where it's like, you'll be like, I'm sorry guys. Like, I just feel like I'm melting down and I'm going to cry. And like, honestly, confessing some of it to other people is probably also an act of self-care. And then they can be like, log off, log off and go have a bath and take a bath. So admitting the weakness and the vulnerabilities, and then being able to give yourself a little compassion in that moment. Because, we all write better when we're well rested and not in the depths of despair over imagined goalposts that we are failing to meet.
Which don't really matter anyway. And our editor is going, I wouldn't have gotten it to next week anyway. So yes.
Yeah, exactly.
They're always relieved too. All right. So what is the best book that you've read recently, and why did you love it?
Yeah, so I really loved Sweeten the Deal by Katie Shepherd. It is coming out, by the time this interview airs, it's already out. And it's sort of a twist on Pretty Woman, where this sheltered neurodivergent young business school graduate who's only, or not, business school student who's only ever dedicated her life to tennis, wants, and comes into an unexpected inheritance, wants to get some sophistication. So she hires this about decade older struggling artist who just got dumped by his fancy girlfriend. He's living on a couch. And so he sort of signs up to a sugar baby site. And he's just like the grumpiest, worst sugar baby in the world. And she is just the sunshiny, like best sugar daddy in the world. But what I really love about Katie's writing is that it's funny. Like, first of all, it's very funny, but it's very empathetic to the characters. Like, it's very compassionate. She's also just like a really wonderful writer and very good with words. But I really loved that romance and that relationship, because it's not about either of those characters suddenly being perfect or changing who they are. A lot of it was just about, again, like self-compassion and finding the joy in that, rediscovering the joy in that. So I just adored it. I thought it was absolutely wonderful.
What a way to turn those tropes on their heads too. That is
yes,
really hilarious. Okay,
I love it. She's like 23 and is like, all right, I'm gonna go out there and find myself. And she doesn't hire him to be her boyfriend. She hires him to be like, all right, you are gonna take me to the opera. I'm gonna learn about opera. I'm gonna learn about sushi. And he's like, oh god, what am I doing?
Hilarious. Okay, I can't wait to read it. Speaking of things that people can't wait to read, will you please tell us about your latest book?
Yes. So my book coming out November 28th in the US and November 30th in the UK. It's the second book in the Glimmer Falls series. The first one was A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon. And this one is
Which
called
was so fun, by the way.
Ah, thank you. This one's called A Demon's Guide to Wooing a Witch. And I love it because it takes the best friend of the heroine from book one and then the villain of book one. And then it puts them together. It's an amnesia road trip romance. It's enemies to lovers. She absolutely hates his gut because of the actions of the first book. He has amnesia and doesn't know why. She hates him. And then they're basically outrunning a bunch of evil demons, hunting them down. They're getting into like brawls with werewolves, like. And it's just, it's a lot. It's very bantery. It's very fast paced. I really like the characters. Like she's just like extremely aggressive. Like she likes to get in fist fights, and he is just like this amazingly snarky, like pansexual British, 400-year-old kind of rake. And I really liked writing their dynamic, and I'm super excited for it to be out in the world.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for telling us about it. And where can you be found out there online?
Yeah, so my website is sarahhawleyauthor.com. And then my social handles are Ms. Sarah Hawley. So that's MS, Sarah with an H, and then Hawley, HAWLEY. And I'm mostly on Instagram these days, a little bit on Twitter, or whatever we're going to call it now. And then hopefully I don't have to learn any more social media platforms.
That's our fingers. Thank you so much. It has been such a treat to talk to you about you.
Yeah, I love this. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.